Let's talk next about an ACOG rebuttal that was written by a brilliant physician. Co-written by two brilliant physicians. First of all, tell us, Doc, what is ACOG? Why did you have to write a rebuttal with Dr. Wilson-King? And what does it mean?
ACOG stands for the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and they are the highest level of that an OBGYN can attain. So they put out a committee opinion about cannabis in pregnancy and lactation. And the last time they put one out was 2017. And that one, even though it was still saying to discourage the use of cannabis in pregnancy and lactation, it was more humble, in my opinion, more open-minded, that we don't know all the facts. But this latest rendition that came out in October of 2025 was more to the right, more definitive, more, in my opinion, dismissive. I mean, they literally made the statement, there is no medical indication for cannabis in pregnancy. And I know that we have made pronouncements before in science that proved to be wrong. For example, briefly, women who are back to nature a lot and really into natural living used to say, please don't clamp the cord until it stopped pulsating. It took several years of private practice for me to actually feel the cord pulsate. But I would, even though I couldn't feel it pulsate, I would just not clamp it as soon as the baby came out. I would wait and let as much blood from the mom as I could to get into the baby. And it turns out that there's now research showing that you improve the baby's hemoglobin and blood count when you don't clamp the cord immediately. So our patients, our women, the wisdom that they probably was passed down to them knew this. And so now, you know, OBGYNs accept it. And that's what I see happening over and over again. So I just didn't feel, in light of the criminalization of women who use cannabis, that this ACOG committee should stand without a comment, and that we're losing out on the opportunity to educate OBGYNs on a little bit to decrease risk. We need to be able to tell them that, you know, you probably don't want to get your cannabis off the street. You probably don't want to do 90% THC content. You should try to maybe vaporize your cannabis instead of smoking it, because even the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine that came out in 2017 felt like the low birth babies that come from mothers who smoke cannabis is probably from the smoking. They even acknowledge it's probably from the combustion of the plant that's causing that. So that is how that came about. And I was very happy that Dr. Wilson-King agreed to author that with me, and Jahan Marcu edited it and struck the right tone. And I'm very, very happy with the piece.
I was quite impressed with it, not because you were angry and saying no, but you were very practical and realistic and engaging about what we're kind of missing and not paying attention to. And before we move on to my next question about it is, can you tell us where people can find this? Where can we read it? I believe it's on your website.
Yes, it will be under the words new blog at the moment. I'm having some issues with the website. But if you go to the Society of Cannabis Clinicians, you can find the piece there.
Society of Cannabis Clinicians. All right. Well, the other thing I wanted to mention about it, and I know that this is near and dear to your heart as an obstetrician who's delivered babies, the criminalization of women who are delivering babies who have potentially used cannabis during their pregnancy, even if they used it a couple of times. What happens if a woman tests positive and when she gives birth, or the baby tests positive for cannabis?
It really depends on the caregivers around her, the professionals around her, the laws of the state. It can be nothing to separation of you from your child going into foster care, and you going to jail or prison. It could be that bad.
Is that like, what is the protocol to be drug testing someone? Does it have to be, red flag or something like that, or is it just done?
That varies from hospital to hospital. However, I will say, in the hospitals that I've been on staff in Georgia, that if someone comes into the hospital and has no prenatal care, you automatically do a drug screen, because you don't know what they've been up to before they got to the hospital, and if there's a bad outcome with the baby, you might get sued as an obstetrician when in fact it wasn't even your fault. So if you don't get any prenatal care and you show up at somebody's ER or hospital, you might get drug tested.
Okay.
But in general, you're not supposed to do it without getting their permission. But a lot of times when women present in labor, they're given a couple of pieces of paper, sign this, sign this, sign this, and they're not reading it. And it says, I give permission for you to collect any specimens for me that you need to or you see fit to do. That's kind of how it happens.
Okay.
There are some hospitals that are progressive, and they seen that even when you don't have mandatory drug testing, that when it's done selectively, Black and brown women get tested more often. So some hospitals have said, we're not doing any, because even when it's not mandatory, you all are still being biased and selecting out Black and brown people when everyone uses it at the same rate. In terms of races, younger people use it more than older moms, but it is increasing for sure. And I just saw a paper not too long ago that I think in 2022, cannabis became more popular with pregnant women than tobacco. So cannabis is the number one thing that pregnant women will use that's quote unquote against the law.